This right here is my new favorite SIM card to the best and most cost-efficient and reliable cell phone provider in Canada. At least to us. More on that in a second. I've tested a bunch of carriers since 2009, and all of that testing has come down to this switch. No, not a Nintendo Switch. This switch to another cell phone provider. And I want to bring you along for my journey to this decision. So I'll let you know which provider I went with in just a bit, but for my answer to make any sort of sense, you need to know the why behind all of this Canadian phone plan chaos that's been happening since before the original iPhone came out. And what's changed since, because this is such a hot topic that even Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted that this government had cut the cost of wireless plans in half. He was obviously instantaneously bombarded by replies from people begging to differ. But I have the reason why so many people think that this 50% cut hasn't happened, even though Canadians do in fact have better access to cheaper plans now than they did in past years. So, coming up, we have answers that will save you money and make you understand what the cost differences and reliability differences really mean for Canadians. Let's get to it. Why Canada's phone plans are so expensive. As you may or may not know, Canada's cell phone plans are notoriously expensive because of two major factors. One, to a lesser extent, Canada's vast geography. We are a large country, geographically speaking. And two, the dominance of major players. A triopoly, if you will. But obviously, if we look even just under the surface level explanations, things get a little bit more complex. Let's pull this chart up real quick. Thanks, Wikipedia. As you can see in this breakdown of all of the providers in all of Canada, depending on your situation, location, specific needs, and budget, there is something for you. All the way down from like $10 up to hundreds of dollars per month. As I said, as soon as you start getting into the weeds of trying to figure out the best deal, it gets confusing real fast because Canada has over 33 million wireless subscriptions, with about 90% held by four major companies: Rogers Wireless, Bell Mobility, TELUS Mobility, and to a lesser extent, Freedom Mobile. As you can see in the chart, Bell, Virgin, and Lucky have just over 10 million subscribers. Rogers, Fido, and Chatter have 11.35 million subscribers. TELUS, Koodo, and Public Mobile have 10.2 million subscribers. And Quebecor, Fizz, Videotron, and Freedom Mobile have 3.6 million subscribers. Combined, these companies own transmission facilities covering most of the country of Canada, which actually encompasses way more than just cell towers, by the way. These big companies often share networks to reduce costs and expand coverage. That right there is the efficiency needed to cover Canada's sprawling land. The remaining 10% of subscribers are then served by smaller regional providers called MVNOs, or Mobile Virtual Network Operators, and resellers which lease network capacity from the larger providers. All wireless providers are regulated by the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, also known as the CRTC, with debates ongoing about promoting competition potentially through measures like mandating wholesale network access for MVNOs. Additionally, there are extension brands associated with the major providers, allowing them to offer different services and reach wider markets. Now, while we're on the topic of pricing and providers and everything like that, I want to call out that Canada's sprawl and just the vastness of its geography isn't actually the culprit for its high prices in the cell phone side of things. I mentioned different situations before, and here's what I mean by that. Understanding coverage is crucial, especially for those living in remote areas where reliable service may be scarce. For example, if you are moving to or already live in a small town, the necessity of reliable coverage is incredibly important, even for your life, because population density out in more remote areas is so low that if you break down or there's an emergency, you will need the best service that you can get, because that's what you're going to have to rely on. It can literally be a life or death situation, but it also can just suck in everyday life because you don't have a signal when you need it. In these fringe cases, switching to Telus or Bell or Rogers provides improved coverage, and that can definitely be worth it, despite the inconvenience of changing providers and dealing with contracts and packages, because these big companies love their contracts and packages and bundles and things like that. More on that in just a bit. But like I just said, these are fringe cases. The majority of Canada's population lives within cities. If you doubt it, the exact number in 2021 is nearly 3 in 4 Canadians. That's 73.7% of Canadians who live in one of Canada's largest urban centres. And that Statistics Canada data is old, so I promise you that number is even higher now with the recent insane population growth since 2021. Whew, that's a whole other video too. Actually, just for some context, here are a few really crazy fun facts. 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles or 160 kilometers of the US border, and more than 70% of Canadians live below the 49th parallel. And more than 60% of Canadians live south of Seattle. What? Like, look at this map. Unbelievable, right? So no. Canada's high mobile phone plan costs aren't due to sprawl, even if getting service out to those 25% of Canadians who live in more remote parts of Canada does cost a disproportionate amount of money to, get all of that out there. But tower sharing in Canada is a huge thing, so that helps everyone out, from the big companies all the way down to the wee little customers. So you're still wondering what the best provider is, and we're almost there, but the reason that I haven't mentioned it isn't actually to do with anything about YouTube's retention, believe it or not. It's because knowing all of this information is important to figure out if you, in your very specific situation, calls for paying through the nose for your cell phone plan, or if you, in your specific situation, can save big on a phone plan that provides you with everything you need for much less than you would be paying if you went with one of the big companies. But if you don't want to hear my personal experience, which I know provides some actually pretty good information and insight into my selection bias, feel free to skip to this timestamp on your screen right now, and yep, you'll get the answer. Without further ado, here's my personal provider and phone plan history over the last long time. For me, it started way back in 2009 with Fido, when I bought a Nokia 6300 T9 keyboard little dinky phone outright for like, I don't know, $300? That sounds right? 200? Whatever, I don't know. Then I upgraded to a BlackBerry or 2, I forget. And then I upgraded to an iPhone number 4? And then 2014, I moved to Telus because I started working for Telus as a telecommunications technician. That plan was unlimited everything, which was awesome, and dirt cheap because employee pricing and stuff. Yeah, that was great. Around that time was when I also switched over to Android for good. In 2017, I tried out Rogers for a short time. I didn't do a contract and didn't upgrade my phone because I didn't want to be locked into a contract. In 2018, just a year later, maybe that was a good reason for not being in a contract. In 2018, I switched to Koodo, where I stayed until the very beginning of 2024. The pivot to public mobile is a whole different phase that is only in the last few months, because in February 2024, I saw a seemingly amazing deal from Public Mobile. My fiance and I chatted about it, we switched over, and a day later we brought my parents over to Public Mobile too. Because theoretically, Public Mobile should have been the same quality as Koodo. Keyword, should. Because if we look back at the Wikipedia chart, we see that both Public Mobile and Koodo run on Telus' networks. And even if that weren't the case, Public Mobile shares service from other companies' towers. But something very specific and weird happened to us. I mean, all 4 of us. Our calls kept dropping endlessly here in London, Ontario for over 2 months. Like a lot. Nothing like this had ever happened with our family before, and no one mentioned anything like this happening to them before we switched. So we reached out to the interwebs and found a few other people complaining about this specific call drop issue as well. And my bet is that this $34 deal for 50 gigs won over a lot of people, including us, and the network couldn't actually sustain and handle the onslaught of customers. But the interesting thing is that this probably still is a net win for public mobile, because I don't think most people are in our situation, and you might not be either, so listen up. See, our family calls a lot. We talk on the phone for hours with friends and family across Canada, but also for work. My assumption is that we are not most people. I'm assuming that most people don't call all that much and instead utilize the large amount of data that you get with these plans for everything they need. Because if data glitches out during a VoIP call like Zoom and Facebook, WhatsApp, Discord, Teams, or others, whatever, there's a single moment of lag and then the call just continues on with a tad bit of lag. Totally fine. But you'd think that the same thing would happen with calls. At least that's what I thought when I spent the time and energy switching all 4 of us over to public mobile. But the dropped calls are something alien to us. It's never happened before and we couldn't take it. We routinely had calls drop 3 to 8 times during conversations, depending on the length of them. Sometimes these drops were within 60 seconds and others were at the half-hour mark. Keep in mind that even if you don't routinely make calls that are longer than 30 minutes, if you have to make a call and have to remain on hold for any reason, your call is undoubtedly going to drop during that time. Worse yet, if you're calling up, I don't know, tech support or something, and you've finally figured out that solution, but the customer service rep is about to fix the problem after maybe 45 minutes on the phone and I have to go through that again? No! Sorry, not kidding you, and that happened to my parents last week, and they were not happy. I think those are the words, not happy. We're going to go with that. They had to restart the entire process, which wasted everyone's valuable time. Like, even the customer service agent. Like, that sucks. Also, before you comment this, yes, callbacks are an option for some companies, but not all. So not really a solution for everything. Okay. So that sounds bad, and it is. And I'm assuming Public Mobile will be looking into it in the next year or so, but this doesn't happen to everyone. And I've been told by the internet that I must live in a bad area or something. Again, never happened ever before. In the meantime, though, we are switching away from Public Mobile because the dropped call rate is just too high for us. One final little tidbit of personal cell phone story for you, because this isn't my regular niche content, so I'm just jamming all of this into one big video so that it's here and lives here, and that's that. Since I made the switch to Kudo way back in 2018, I've purchased a phone or two, but always do it by making use of Kudo's selection of pre-owned discounted phones. And we've never had issues doing it more than 8 times, as in 2 times per person. Because even as a content creator, I love getting phones that are about 1 year old because they're just so heavily discounted with 90% or more of the features of the brand new phones that cost so much more. Seriously, back in 2021, my fiance and I each got a Galaxy S20 for like $300 when the year before they were new and they went for like $1,300. After taxes and stuff. And then we went out a few months later and bought both my parents' S20s for like $200 each. Like ridiculously low costs for flagship phones, or last year's flagship phones. It's like the best way to do it. It's not like 1-year-old tech is suddenly too old to run or anything. It's not like it just dies. As long as I have a few good cameras on my phone and it's snappy and fast, I'm happy. Now, we're still rocking these S20s, but we're finally starting to notice that our phones are running ever so slightly slower in the last few months. So after so many years of constant use, we'll probably swap out to newer ones during this year's Black Friday or sometime in 2025. Again, using the pre-owned section of Kudo. The last noteworthy bit that we need to quickly cover, and I do mean quickly because I'm not going into detail with this one for once. If you want or somehow need the latest and greatest phones and tech, or if you want to get a family bundle package or plan or home internet or cable or video doorbells or outdoor and indoor security cameras or smart thermostats, etc., you'll want to check out the big companies. Just keep in mind the full cost of what you're getting yourself into. I'm not going to go into the details here because it's just so much to cover and it's just an entirely separate video. We're just happy with our home internet being from TechSavvy and our mobile service being separate with Kudo right now and for the last bunch of years. They're about medium speeds. Neither are the best you can get, but they're also just what we need. And we never feel limited. Otherwise, yeah, if we ever feel limited, we would upgrade, but we never have. Everything we have is exactly what we need. Okay, back on track here. With all of that information and context in mind, here is what I've found over the last decade of using different providers. Coverage for most Canadians is just fine for most carriers, no matter if you're paying premium rates or discounted rates, or with a discount provider or a very premium provider. Because most people in Canada live in the city where cell reception is stellar, even public mobile. Like, again, most people don't make calls, so choose your poison according to your personal situation. Doesn't work for us? Totally could work for you. But some people have very specific needs or use cases, whether it's someone who works as an electrician and needs to have a great cell signal when they're in the basements of buildings or something like that, or someone who needs Wi-Fi calling. Not having Wi-Fi calling can be a big deal to people who don't have great cell reception in places like their home or work. For example, Wi-Fi calling is offered on Kudo, but not public mobile. And before you say anything, no, that wasn't the issue because we all had 4 bars or more in our houses, whether it's up top or down or across the city. Like, we just had constant call drops no matter where we were. Not great. Anyway, that's for us. But for people in those situations, you'll just want to search for the right carrier, which especially in those cases might not mean the cheapest carrier. In those cases, checking out coverage maps in Rogers and TELUS or Bell and not being on a contract would be the best thing to do because you can kind of skip around until you find something that works for your situation. In our case, if you hadn't have guessed, we're headed back to Kudo. I even dressed up in this, which is kind of like Kudo's vibe, very bright, flamboyant colors. They've been great for all of the years that we were with them, where we didn't have any dropped calls, we had reliable calls, high quality calls, decent plans, and even better promos. If you get a promo like we did, $39 for 20 gigs, you could get an even better deal in the upcoming months or Black Friday. And the good news is that these great Kudo deals aren't limited to new activations only. Instead, you can check out your Kudo account anytime online, and the deals cycle in and out from there. And all you need to do is take about 60 seconds, clickety-clack, and you'll have changed your account over to the new plan just like that. Done. Really, really simple. Well, this was a different type of video for sure. Back to my regular stuff in the next one. As per usual, if you have any questions, hit up the comment section below, drop a like and stuff and things and all of that. I hope this made some sort of sense to someone and helped someone make some sort of decision. Bye.